Yes, take us away, Lori.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is our CEA Clerk Lori Taketa. Here are some housekeeping announcements for today's meeting. For those of you who are here at the Warfinger Building, the microphones will be on throughout the meeting except during closed session. Please try to speak one person at a time. Say your name when you begin talking so the remote participants can follow the discussion. There are no online board members, no remote participants today. For community members participating in the public comment periods, if you are able, please come to the podium so that the microphone can pick up your voice. Online participants, click the raise hand button in the webinar controls. Phone participants, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Please raise your hand early so we don't miss you. Public comment may be limited to 2 minutes at the chair's discretion. Email public comments are accepted at publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org until the chair closes the public comment period for that agenda item. And remote participants, if you experience phone or internet disruptions during this meeting, please notify us if you can by calling or texting 707-382-7336 or by emailing publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org.
Okay, thank you, Lori. All right, we are going to call the June 27th, 2024 meeting of the RCEA Board of Directors to order, and can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Director Arroyo.
Here.
Vice Chair Scott Bauer is absent. Director Jorgensen.
Here.
Director Mobley.
Here.
Director Frankie Myers is absent. Director Jason Ramos.
Here.
Director Elise Scafani. Here. Chair Sarah Schaefer.
Here.
Director Jack Tuttle.
Here.
Director Frank Wilson.
Here.
Director Sherry Wu.
Here.
The quorum for both regular and CCE.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, so we have no directors participating remotely, and so that's going to take us into reports from member entities. How many directors would like to report on anything from their jurisdictions? Not seeing it. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I have just a cool update. Humboldt County is the signatory to the amended Klamath Hydroelectric Settlement Agreement. But in addition to that, I serve as a representative of the Klamath River Renewal Corporation Board as a governor's appointee. And so I just had an opportunity yesterday to visit the dams that are being removed, and just unbelievably cool. Very moving to see that Iron Gate Dam is well on its way to being removed. There's not very much of it left, and the same with Copco #1, and other dams are also in the process or completely removed. So the 4 dams are well on their way, and it's looking good to have that wrapped up at the end of the year. And so those projects have not been part of the hydroelectricity generation game for quite a while. And I think a lot about our responsibility to learn from the past, to make good decisions and participate in good projects and good feedback about energy in the future, especially as, in conversation with several folks there, we talked about offshore wind and it coming our way, and some of the concerns and considerations with that around, unintended consequences and equity, and it was just a very moving moment, and it's just putting a lot of things into perspective for me when you're seeing these huge projects, how much it takes to undo damage, and then, wanting to learn from that in the future around just making the best decisions we possibly can for our planet and, for the place that we live in. So just wanted to share that. I'd be happy to show people endless videos or photos if they want, but it's really exciting.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, I got to see some of your pictures on Instagram. That looks just quite the landscape. So thank you. Anybody else, any other directors have anything to report? All right, not seeing anybody, that's gonna take us to item 3, which is oral and written communication. This is time provided to address the board for matters that are not on the agenda. The board may respond to statements, but items inspiring action will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on items not on the agenda? Not seeing anybody here in person. Do we have anybody on Zoom? Okay.
There was one, there was one, written comment submitted by Mr. Macy, which was losing the monthly. And that's available on the website.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. All right, I will close oral communications at this point, and then that will take us into the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the board and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items, and if discussion is required, that item can be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. The reading of the end of the consent calendar, board members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. Item 4.1, approve the minutes of the May 23rd, 2024 board meeting. 4.2, approve disbursements reports. 4.3, accept financial reports. Item 4.4, approve resolution 2024-6, approving the form of and authorizing the execution of the long-term portfolio content category 3 purchase agreement with Soul Systems LLC. Item 4.5, adopt resolution 2024-7, adopting the amended board operating guidelines to include revised meeting procedures and transparency requirements and an amended conflict of interest code due to changed board membership, and authorize the board clerk to submit the amended conflict of interest code to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors as the code reviewing body. All right, do we have any members of the board that would like to pull an item from consent? Or staff? Not seeing that, any members of the public? And members of the public, right? And then I will entertain a motion to consent. I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar items 4.1 through 4.5. I'll second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor, since all in favor, we'll do a raised hand vote, so aye. Aye. And Jason, aye.
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. Great, thank you. All right, that will take us into CCE business, and we do have a CCE forum, so we'll go directly into item 7, new CCE business. 7.1, which is the income is graduated fixed charge presentation. So Richard Engel is here to present on this topic.
Yes, good afternoon, and I'll be co-presenting with Carlson, so we get a team presentation today.
Hey there. Am I able to advance myself for this?
Oh, just the one to the right there, that. Yeah.
All right, I am Faith Carlson, your regulatory and legislative policy manager. So excited to be able to present in front of the board. Going to be talking today with the help of Richard on the income graduated fixed charge and just an overview of it in general, as well as customer impacts. So what is it? Well, there's two components to the fixed charge. The first is that there's a fixed cost. So a portion of the electric corporation's costs that do not vary directly based on how much electricity a customer consumes. So just infrastructure and operational costs. And then the second portion is that, well, it's income graduated. So that means that the charge increases as an individual's income rises. It's kind of like a subscription fee or a service fee. And then there would be a volumetric charge on top of that. I have an example on a SMUD bill shown there with a system infrastructure fixed charge, which is, it's like the projectors that take off a little bit there actually. So but that's going to be a $24 charge that they have there. And how did it come to be? Well, in AB 205, which included a variety of measures. It included reliability reserves, financial incentives, long duration energy storage, customer arrears, distributed energy, and prevailing wage for construction, and the income graduated fixed charge. Supporters of it have said that they believe that this charge may make billing more equitable across California. And the opposition has said that, well, there's some concerns with giving income information to the IOUs, as well as increased customer costs for those that use less energy. Thanks, Pam. So the income graduated fixed charge intends to lower the cost of volumetric power by by removing fixed costs and then lowering the volumetric rate from that. And would also lower electricity bill costs for the average low-income residential customer. Both volumetric transmission and delivery rates would decrease under this, with the addition of an additional fixed charge. And the idea would be that things would break even. It includes a new tiered charge based on program enrollment status. So there's 3 tiers: care, FARA, and non-care FARA customers. And the goal with that would be to again, like I said, lower rates there. So customers would hopefully see a slight decrease on their bill if they're in those lower tiers. These are examples of the tiers here. So tier 1, you have $6 for care customers. Tier 2 is a $12 fixed charge for FARA customers, as well as those in affordable deed restricted housing, and that is deed restricted to customers with income less than 80% of area median income. And then the last category is, if you don't satisfy those, $24.15. So that's just everybody else, non-care FARA and non-deed restricted. And the default of that would be if a customer hasn't provided that income data, which is voluntary to IOUs, then they would go into that default tier 3 category. And then these values were inspired by SMUD's $24 charge, which then is cut in half for SMUD's low-income customers to 12. Here we just have a 3rd tier. All of these tiers will see a slight rate reduction. It's going to be roughly an 11% rate reduction on the volumetric charge, but there will be the addition of this new charge. And for PG&E territory, that's going to start in Q1 of 2026. Other IOUs are going to have a slightly sooner implementation. What's implementation going to look like? So for residential IOU customers only is who is going to see this, but there are a couple of exemptions. If there's a residential customer that's on a master metered rate, that might be like an RV park, you'll often see that rate structure there. Or someone who has a existing residential account with a secondary EV meter, that meter won't have this charge applied. For income verification, it's there's not going to be really any verification off the bat. Like I said earlier, you'll go into that $24 bucket first. And then unless a customer has shown already that they are enrolled in Care FARA or wish to enroll in that program. So it's totally voluntary. The fixed costs include marginal customer access costs, purpose program costs, nuclear decommissioning, and cost allocation mechanism items. That implementation budget is $35.6 million. That does not include the budget for marketing and customer education. That is spread across all the IOUs, though. I just want to note that's not PG&E only there. So it's spread across the 3. Marketing, customer education, and outreach is going to be proposed by each IOU via the advice letter process to CC, which will then be approved by them. And over collection will be corrected via a true-up process annually for agriculture.
Right. Thank you, Nathan. So Faith gave you a look at what this means from a policy lens, and I'm looking at it. Since in my role I oversee our customer account services, I'm looking at this for what it will actually mean for our customers. And it's interesting to note the CPUC in their analysis of the legislation came away with their take on it being that this was not intended to lower the bill for every low-income customer. So the way it's structured, even among the lower income customers, depending on their energy use, they may see savings or might not see them. Our team did some analysis on this, and we looked at how much usage minimum would you have to have in order for this new model to result in savings compared with the rate model that you currently have in place. Because energy use is so different between our coastal customers and our customers who generally are going to use more electricity, both for cooling in the summer where they have air conditioning, and in winter if they have heating systems with all electric use. We're going to tend to see higher overall electric use by those inland customers. For our analysis, we kind of broke the customers down into those coastal and inland customers and saw that they did indeed have really significant difference in their electricity use when we broke down customer data that way. And so that's kind of another slice and dice we did of the customer data, in addition to just looking at people according to their income levels as indicated, whether they're in the CARE and FARA rate discount programs. We just summed up how many customers we have in each of those areas and determined what the usage tiers would have to be. So inside those blue and green boxes, you can see for the coastal customers on the top in blue, customers who are in FARA or CARE or not in either of those programs have different usage levels they would have to hit where their bill starts to be lower than it would be. And what we see in that area on the coast is the average monthly usage is 395 kilowatt hours. So looking at those numbers, it looks like most of those customers are unlikely to have a high enough usage to get savings. So on the coast, most customers will probably have higher bills overall than they do under the current program. It's quite different if you look at the inland customers. There, the average use is 690 kilowatt hours, so close to twice as high. And so if you look at the tiers of usage that they would have to hit where they start seeing savings, their usage is higher than that. Some of those customers, in fact, quite a lot of them are probably going to have bill savings. So it's a very different story whether you're coastal or inland. There's baseline territories that were mentioned a couple of slides back here. And those baseline territories come into play because if you're a PG&E customer for electric, you have a different electric baseline depending on which of these territories you're in. And you'll note that the map of PG&E's baseline territories does also divide customers into those coastal and inland groups. So they recognize that people characteristically have different electricity uses in those areas. Across PG&E's service territory as a whole, this change in rate structure is designed to be revenue neutral, meaning the utility need not collect more or less total revenues under this change. It's just going to redistribute, who's paying that revenue. And in our case, that's not necessarily true because we have a different climate, we have different income levels, and so that's going to lead to different outcomes for our customers. And so it appears to us that for our CA service territory overall, they're probably more worse off financially than better off under this new paradigm. But we've also, in us and Cal CCA, our statewide advocacy group looking at this, we've noted that probably a lot of customers who live in inland parts of the state, like in the Central Valley, most of those areas are not served by CCAs. And those are the customers that are going to have high cooling bills in the summer and where there's a lot of low income customers. So those non-CCA areas are the areas that are likely to see pretty large benefits under this new program. So we just, there's kind of been a lot of talk among the CCA about wanting to be sensitive to that reality and not advocating too forcefully against GFC just based on the impacts for our own customers. That puts us at odds with customers who might really need the financial benefits even more. I'll hand it back to Faith for the last part of the session.
Thank you. Hello again. So for what's going forward after this? So future reporting to the CPUC, there's a couple working groups. There's the CPUC process working group. They're going to be looking at do any adjustments need to be made to the tiers or to those fixed costs for those tiers. And then for the implementation, that's going to be looking at kind of some additional information on adjusting the tiers as well as true ups there. Those groups aren't going to be active for about a year though. So that is something that's going to be a future effort. There's also going to be quarterly reports required from the IOUs to the CPUC on this and on their progress towards implementation, customer awareness, and things of that nature. There is also a bill that became aware of since writing the staff report. It's SB 1292, and that one is going to be requiring reporting of IGFC to the legislature. And then kind of will give them a window of opportunity to see if they want to implement any new charges, and they wouldn't be able to implement any until then. So that one's still a potential bill, hasn't been shot down yet or moved forward. So that's something to watch. And then as for next steps for our CEA, we'd love to take your feedback on this. We also plan to bring an informational report to the CAC and have a future dialogue with them closer to the implementation date in 2026 related to how to position this to the community. And we'll continue monitoring our regulatory and legislative activity on the issue. So with that, any questions, feedback, anything? Yeah.
Did I understand that besides the flat rate fixed, the volumetric rate of what you're using for, you're being charged per kilowatt hour, is that dependent on your income as well?
No, that just will go down overall.
For everything?
Yes.
And is that based on right, the part that says you had 395 kilowatt hours was the average that you was based on? Did it move up beyond?
Sure, I'm sorry.
I don't know that I followed what the figures. You were like the one with the blue arrow.
Right, sure. So what we see is if we look at the coastal customers, their average usage in our data is 395 kilowatt hours a month. Because of the way this is going to change things with there being that fixed charge that Faith talked about that's different for different income levels, coupled with the amount they're going to pay per kilowatt hour, we determined that you'd have to reach above the numbers in that the left-hand column in the blue box where it says, so if you're a fair customer, for example, and you use more than 217 kilowatt hours a month, which most customers do, then you're going to see a reduction in your costs.
That's not very many kilowatt hours. I know that all other base rates don't apply to what reality, I mean, your refrigerator uses that.
Yeah, I mean, the statewide average is something like 550 kilowatt hours a month.
They're saying our average people on the Level County are using the RCEA area, are using those kind of numbers, 217
We're using above that. What we're actually using is the 395 on the coastal side, and then the inland customers are using 690 on average. So there's outliers, of course.
Still seems awful. That's something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what our data says, so we'll go back and revisit that, but that's what we're seeing, and if you take the average of the 395 and 690, it's not too far off the state average of 550.
I'm trying to unpack this marginal customer access cost piece, and I may have, maybe it's not that important in the conversation, but I think I understand marginal costs and economics, but I don't understand in this case whether it applies to the marginal costs associated with additional customers or additional units of energy. But it kind of reads to me like using the fixed cost for the marginal customer access cost increases is like, essentially a mechanism to pay for the analysis of hooking up additional customers who need access. Is that true? Is that what this does?
I am not as familiar with that specific cost. In my research for this, not 100% of the costs listed are covered by the fixed charge.
Okay.
So the idea is to remove some portion of these like fixed expected costs to the IOU to the fixed charge, but that doesn't mean it's all of it.
Yeah.
So when they do reference under and over collection, my understanding is that's to mean like if the target of the average low income customer didn't have bill savings, is that what's referenced? I don't read it as the under and over collection is related to those costs because they weren't intending for those to be fully covered by the fixed charge anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like those other categories of what the fixed charge goes to is an area of that I just want to learn more about, especially when the opportunity comes. Like we don't have control over this, but when the opportunity comes around next time for any advocacy, I think I'd like to have a better understanding of some of those mechanisms and just the economics piece of it, because it seems like an area where we could advocate for
Yeah, I mean, there is always opportunity to engage in that, in SB 1292 as well, too. So,
Yeah, we can either follow up with you individually, or if the board is holding to hear more about that, we're happy to follow
Does
up.
everybody want to hear about marginal restaurant?
Well, I think it kind of relates a little bit to the question that I was gonna ask, because this seems like another instance where like, kind of CCAs are kind of getting cut off at the knees a little bit. But like, the way that you explained it, it seemed more that obviously it's a benefit for the IOUs, and so what sort of level of advocacy do CCAs have in this right now, and like, how is this being received overall by CCAs?
yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it. So, we're kind of in a unique position in Humboldt County in that we are one of the few CCAs with a pretty low income customer base. Other CCAs, the advocacy effort is not consistent because the results of the IGFC are so different on everyone's customer base, particularly for us versus the other CCAs there. And that's to Richard's point. I believe about 60% of customers in the state are not certified CCA. And there's a whole other report that we could go into about affordability of energy in California. And the customers in largely those areas are the ones that are in the areas of affordability concern and do stand to benefit from this and are not certified CCA. So as far as a coordinated advocacy effort with other CCAs, there wouldn't be one because it affects all of us so differently. If there's interest for RCA to do that, that's a different conversation.
And it brings up, I guess, just the larger, moral questions of realizing, yeah, this is gonna help a lot of people. They might not be where our CEA is providing energy to, but
Yeah,
that it could have relief for a lot of customers.
and they did go through quite a few proposals before coming to this decision at the CPUC, which is another area where, you don't really know what you're advocating for. Maybe the proposal would have been favorable for us.
Any other questions from the board?
Is there a pending assembly bill on 1999?
Yeah, that one did not move forward. Yeah, unfortunately. I think that one, the previous month, we submitted a legislative activity report and that we were tracking, and that one I don't think even made it onto that list. It died a couple days beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you, Faith. Thank you, Richard. I'll take it out to public comment. So is there any members of the public that would like to comment? I'm not seeing any in person. Is anybody online? All right. I will bring it back to the board for any final thoughts before we move forward to our next item. But thank you guys for presenting on that and a lot of great information. All right, we'll move us then on to 7.2, which is Community Choice Energy Program Procurement Target Achievements. And so we have Richard, I'm going back to
Well, again, this is following up on something we had a consultation with the board on for just an informational item and getting feedback from you last month. What's going on, as we discussed, is the costs of renewable and carbon-free energy have increased dramatically in recent years. And we're also facing just kind of financial operational challenges for the CCA program for other reasons that are unrelated to the renewables procurement. One being just the retail rates from PG&E are forecast to be taking some pretty significant steps downwards in the coming year, which is good news for our customers because we have this model where we couple our rates with PG&Es. We would be also decreasing our rates and hence our revenues. We've also, we've talked to you about the slice of day resource adequacy requirement that's coming on us now and becomes binding in 2025. And that's going to require us to do more capacity procurement than we otherwise would have to. And that's another financial hit for us in the coming year. So as we discussed, we've kind of got these choices to make. Do we accept, smaller, nest egg in the bank, or do we reduce our renewable energy procurement, or do we consider higher customer rates? Which of these is acceptable? The overall guidance we got from the board last month was that we were open to reducing the renewable procurement targets with the understanding that that would just be kind of a temporary adaptive move to get us through what looks like a couple of years of financial challenges. There's, on the positive side, we see month after month that our existing long-term renewable contracts have been performing well. And with the Sandrini solar project coming online later this year, that's going to provide some additional long-term price security. And it's going to, that one project alone is going to be upwards of 40% of our total kilowatt hours that we need to supply each year. So there's some good news, looking further out, but we kind of have to get through this rough period in the near term. So this is a graphic that is a slightly updated version of what's been on our website for a while now on our power mix page. And so this shows the history of where we've come in our energy procurement since launching the program in 2017. The green bars are the renewables. The blue is the non-renewable but carbon-free resources, and the gray part is everything else, what we call unspecified power. So you can see that we moved up. 2022 was an excellent year for renewable and carbon-free power procurement. 2023 also a pretty good year. A little bit of slippage on the renewable procurement just out of financial necessity, and for 2024 and 2025, we proposed to, we have this upward trajectory that was to get us to reducing the unspecified power to zero by 2025. This was in keeping with the board's direction to have a completely, renewable, clean portfolio by 2025. And then the future trajectory beyond that has us continuing to procure more renewables and phasing out the other carbon-free resources until by 2030, for direction. We also have from the board, we arrive at 100% renewables. So compare that with this graph. The only two bars that are different are 2024 and 2025. So what we propose to do is take the renewables procurement down to the state standard minimums for those 2 years, and not do any additional carbon-free procurement beyond that. The carbon-free procurement comes almost entirely from large hydropower projects, and these are not new projects that are being built on RCEA's behalf. This is just us buying some of the attributes for the existing hydropower projects. So we don't think there's, in the real world, a huge impact of us scaling up that hydropower procurement. So just to go back one time and compare. So we're, looking at 50 and 56% renewables in those 2 years for our current trajectory. And we're proposing to take those down to 44 and 47%. But in all the following years, we're proposing to, go back, finances permitting, to exactly the trajectory that we would otherwise be on, and still getting 200% renewable by 2030. In terms of financial impacts, the two number columns furthest to the left show the trajectory we're on if we, stick to our guns on what we're currently planning to procure. And you see that plans with $4 million in lost net revenue, so negative $4 million for the coming fiscal year, and then 6.2 in additional losses in our net revenues the following year. On the adjustment, we would still be negative in both of those years according to our latest modeling, and this is a little bit worse than what we were talking about when we came to you last month. And that's just because the challenges are continuing to creep upward in terms of just the resources we need to procure. And again, just the revenues being lower because of customer rates expected to go down. So we're a little bit in the hole in the coming fiscal year under this proposal, and then $3.3 million in additional losses in the next fiscal year. But that does net us about $4 million in reduced losses in the coming fiscal year, and about 3 million in reduced losses the following year. So it's still a much better financial outcome. And just to remind you, we're standing at about $25 million in the bank, right? According to the chart I'm looking to, Eileen,
Between 20-ish.
okay, 20-ish.
Fluctuates
Yes.
daily.
So, we wind up approximately $7 million less than that in the bank at the end of the fiscal year 25-26 if we pursue this course of action. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have.
And if I could just add, this is not a problem unique to our CEA. In the meetings that we've been having with other CCAs, this is affecting all CCAs equally. And just to give a little, insight into what other CCAs are doing to try to mitigate, we got a notice that one CCA was going back to their board to change their policy on nuclear procurement. And other CCAs are doing what we're doing in delaying 100% renewable out a few years. And the other recommendation that we're getting from our partner CCAs is moving towards a cost of service model. So, you can set your standards and then you set your rates based on what it costs to procure those. And for many reasons, the cost of service model is really being looked at right now. And Nancy has been engaged in a general counsel group through CalCCA, exploring more of this cost of service model and uncoupling from the IOUs. One of the comments that was made by a CEO of another CCA was, don't allow the IOU to take you off a cliff. When they went to a cost of service model, she said she started sleeping much better at night. So, this is a pause, not a permanent solution, and I know staff does not take lightly pausing our renewable standards. We're all here to provide a better, cleaner resource than the IOU. But we need a little bit of time to figure out how to do that long-term for our community. And so, in the next year, CalCCA is going to take this on to look at best practices for cost of service, and we're going to be very engaged in that, and we're bringing back more to the board. In addition, we're planning on bringing an update back to the board in 6 months. We've seen the risk models fluctuate wildly from month to month, and so we have the ability to go back. If in 6 months the financial outlook is much rosier, we can undo this, or we might have to tighten more of our belt and look at other options. But I just wanted to assure the board that we're this isn't wiping our hands and we're just moving on. This is something that we're going to be working on tirelessly over the next 6 months.
If I can add one other insight we picked up from talking with the other CCA's leaders about this, they did say that in instances where they chose to do a cost of service rate and it resulted in higher rates than the IOU, they did not see a significant bump up in opt-outs. However, I guess I would just balance that with, we're not Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
We're not LA, we don't have as affluent of a customer base as some of the CCAs that are making these choices. So that needs to be considered as well.
And one interesting thing, and this kind of goes into something that Director Arroyo's talked about, but on a reverse, in the instances that they had rates higher than the IOU, they had an opt-down option to match it. So, you could opt down, we just have an opt-out. So they had an opt-down. And again, what Richard said, they saw very few opt-outs and they really didn't see many opt-downs. And so I think they quoted they were at 1.8% higher than the IOU. So we're not suggesting that right now, but we're gonna be, looking into it and bringing those things forward.
Yeah, I'll open it up for questions. Go ahead.
Can you remind me what the Repower Plus mix, this isn't the Repower Plus mix, right?
Yeah, this is our overall mix, but
Right.
since the opt-out number is pretty low, it doesn't, well, you know, it kind of gets lost in the noise a little bit, you know, because
Sure.
we only have a couple percent of customers opted up, but the Repower Plus mix is an equal three-way split of small hydro, solar. It used to have 5%, and then we removed that.
So it's part of
portfolio
the
a few years ago, so
Okay.
yes, it's part of the three.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, yeah, let's open it up for questions, and then I know we have some members of the public that want to comment, so let's let that happen before we get too deep into any other discussion. Go ahead, Frank.
So you said we used to have a split three ways with the hydro, solar and, biomass?
Well, what we used to have a few years ago was we had the biomass at basically the same portion of the mix for those opted up customers as well as for the other customers. And then the rest of it was a 50-50 split of wind and solar. And so we basically took out the biomass part of it and just rebalanced the other two. So it's just 33, 33, 33 now.
There's no hydro?
There is hydro, yeah, so it's hydro replaced the biomass, basically.
But the hydro. It's not renewable,
It is, because it's small hydro. So, in the state of California, the renewable portfolio standard includes hydro projects if they're smaller than 30 megawatts. So, for example, the project we have under a long-term contract, the Cove Hydro project over in Shasta County is only 5.5 megawatts. So, it easily is small enough to qualify as renewable. And so that's the hydro that we're using to make up that portion of our Repower Plus
Funny,
portfolio.
Repower Plus, the
Yeah.
biomass. We're still buying biomass,
We're still building biomass, but
but it's not in hydro.
that's just supplying our non-opted up customers, the ones that are way out.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions? Directors? All right, let's open it up to the public then. So if you'd like to comment on this item, please make your way to the podium. You will have 3 minutes.
So the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere on June 24th was 423.58 parts per million. This is the highest it's been in the last 3 million years. So I was here five, maybe 6 years ago when the RCA board set the 2025 100% target. And it was a very active meeting. There were folks spilling out of the hallway. And what that means to me is that RCA is more than just trying to produce power or sell power at a rate that is, slightly cheaper than PG&E. It's also about acquiring power that kind of matches our community values. And so I understand and I'm sympathetic to the budgetary constraints that you are under. But I'm urging you to try to keep that non-carbon and renewable as high as we can, even now. I know that this is a temporary pause, but let's try to find creative solutions, find cost savings, dip into our savings a little bit if necessary, to try to keep us on target to get to 100% at least by 2030. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm an attorney at Epic. I won't just repeat everything Tom said, but take it as me repeating everything Tom said. I'll also say, I heard you $20 million. I think that's enough room to add a couple of years and use that time to work on the cost of service that you were talking about, which I think is a great idea. I'll also say I didn't sit for the last comment section quickly enough. But hopefully, as people switch from gas to electricity to heat their homes, our electric use on the coast actually will go up. And so hopefully that will help with some of those problems. And then I think that talking to CPCC about a coastal exception, low income coastal exception makes a ton of sense and would distinguish us from CCAs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Online, perhaps? All right,
Was another submitted written comment, but I think that this proposing a reduction in the energy bills. And that is available.
thank you. All right, at this point, I'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the board for any thoughts, discussions. I know we went pretty deeply into this, in our last meeting, we were talking about budget. So, yes, go ahead, Emily.
So in our last meeting, we also talked about, and this is something where I'm looking to those of you with more experience on this board or with this organization, staff included, that I know my gut reaction was also like, well, double-digit $1 million figures seem like a healthy buffer. But then I recall looking at the period of time where we got really close to zero, and I was wondering if you could remind us what that looks like, and just any thoughts on that experience and why that buffer is important to have.
Yeah, and I'll refer to staff that, and then also to add to that, because I do remember at our last meeting, we kind of discussed some of the new accountability measures and restrictions that the CPUC has put on CCAs, and that like if we go below $10 million of reserves, basically they're gonna put us on watch basically and put us on notice that we need to clean up our act and figure it out. So I'll refer to you, Tyler, to kind of answer both of those questions and just to give the overview of like what really is, I guess, kind of the bottom line of reserves that we want to have, and how scary is it to get used to that basically.
Yeah, so to address the first part of when we got to zero, we had to take out 2 loans to be able to have enough cash to continue. That was a kind of perfect storm of power costs had gone down the previous year, so rates went down, and since we're tied to PG&E, our generation, our revenue rates went down. In combination of that, the PCIA, the power charge indifference adjustment, so the amount that the IOUs collect for customers that they basically invested infrastructure in to generate electricity that departed and went to CCAs, they get to collect back on that. So then the PCIA went up, which again reduces our revenue. And then our costs weren't going down. So all of a sudden the electricity costs skyrocketed, but the revenue we were bringing in went down, the PCIA went up. And additionally, through COVID, we had a lot of uncollected accounts and that we couldn't collect on. And so many CCAs, suffered through COVID in a similar way as our CEA. So, the goal of our cash reserves is to weather, the market is so volatile, is to weather those ups and downs in the market, and, be able to, go through the dips that we have had in the past. The cost of service model would get us away from that, because then we would be paying what it costs to provide the service, and we wouldn't be tied to that IOU up and down as much. We're still going to, have the fluctuation of PCIA and market changes. So, we've been told best practices that, we need to have X number of days cash on hand, which, and I'm gonna look to Lori but I think like our minimum that we really need to maintain is 11 million. And that And that is now not just a best practice, that's a mandate through the CPUC's decision that came this year of provider of last resort. To ensure, again, a lot of these are to ensure that the IOUs are collecting their revenue and that they're being made whole. There really isn't any protection for CCAs to be made whole. And so if we dip below a certain number of the cash on hand, and I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, then we have to start reporting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that number for us is around 11 million right now. And it's based on our operating costs. And that is just for that CPUC tier 2, default amount. But if we're looking at like what actual best practice is 180 days on, cash days on hand or days cash on hand, for purposes of being able to not have to do like a buyer's deposit for the contracts that we enter or for purposes of actually getting a letter of credit from financial institutions. That's where that 35 million came in, and we're really more at the midpoint of like 37 now. So we had launched with the goal of having minimum of 10 in adverse conditions, ideally 35 million in the bank under like good market conditions. And since it's been a few years now, we're really more at the like 37 million is kind of that midpoint.
And to Lori's point, those amounts are based on what it costs to procure, what our operating costs are. So, as energy costs go up, the amounts that we will be required to have on hand also go up.
Yeah, and I was the way that I interpreted your question, Victoria, was that referring back to when we were predicting out our net revenue for the next 3 years being like basically all our cash on hand. And that's still the case. I think without changing our procurement, we're still looking at in 3 years, unfortunately, going through all the cash we have on hand right now. And I just want to maybe clarify in case it wasn't clear with Richard's slide and presenting our net revenue is just, those were just energy costs. So that doesn't include his numbers that he was on his slide. I don't think included like our operating costs and expenses, which you'll see in our budget presentation. So that's negative net revenue, not including for just energy procurement, not including our other operations costs, of course, not including our other operations revenue either.
And then our contract, add one more thing. Our contract with the Energy Authority, which Lori touched on, our cost to do business with them goes up or changes depending on how much cash we have on hand. And so it costs more if we dip below an amount because it's more risky for them to be buying on our behalf.
Yeah.
Could we like move the needle if we match PG&E's and remove that 5% discount? What would that do?
It's a 0.5%
Or 0.5%,
discount.
okay.
It wouldn't, it would move it some, but not a lot.
Okay. And then also, what about like removing all these rebate programs that we have? What if we removed all those extra programs? How would that maybe affect our budget?
So, in the current or the proposed budget that we have in the next item, it's about 230,000 for rebates. And then there's associated staff with that. And I calculated that number last month and I don't have it in my brain right now. So, but yeah.
It's not a lot.
No, in the budget slides, I show the pie chart of where the bulk of our costs are really, 90% of our costs are power procurement.
Yeah, I think our current proposed budget is 5.2 million for personnel. So even a chunk of that wouldn't be a whole lot.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments from directors? A motion, anything like that? something that will make you feel better about this.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-8, adopting the state target for cleaner renewable electricity for the remainder of calendar year 2024 and calendar year 2025.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Mobley. Do we have a second?
Also,
Second by Director Stefani. We will do a show of hand vote. So all in favor, the aye votes, raise your hand, please. Yes, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That is unanimous because non-voting. All right. And then, yes, we'll take your comment here.
It does seem the wisest course of action, and it is with a very heavy heart, and I think that's true for most, if not all of us, and I just urge that we change course at the earliest opportunity.
And I would definitely echo that and agree for staff to continue to pursue looking at this cost of service model as well, because this isn't the goals of Humboldt County is not what we want to see, but the CPUC and the energy market continues to kind of really tie our hands if we want to keep our heads above the floor. So I agree with what you said there, Natalie. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
So, for the cost of service model, as we get into more longer term purchase agreement, power agreements, would that cost of service model make it so that it's less like this and even out?
That's the hope. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. If
Yeah.
we're in a 20 or 30-year contract, we know what it is.
You know, the cost and we mentioned in the staff report, this, and Richard touched on it. This change isn't changing our trajectory of those long-term contracts. We're still, we're talking about solicitations today, changing our long-term goals for contracts. This is really just kind of changing what we're buying on the spot market temporarily.
That's a good question, Terry. All right, so you got the vote though, yes, okay. All right, thank you, folks, and that will be the end of CCE business, and we are gonna move into item 8.1, which is old business, which is the 2024-25 proposed budget. So can we have staff?
That will be me, and yeah, you can just do the slides. Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. So I was gonna be brief with this, but if at any time you would like me to get into more detail, but really, this is just bringing back what we presented in May. We accounted for the reduction in the renewable portfolio standard goal to the state standard in the proposed budget. So the budget that we're presenting to you today is still based on the financial model for May 7th. I will say that we all have been watching the financial models daily to see, and it's still fairly similar. I was hoping that they would start getting better, but that wasn't the case. So we're still using the May 7th model. And we're still looking at a negative net revenue for fiscal year 2024-25 based on the increased costs and decrease in revenue that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So this budget does maintain all existing staff, accounts for estimated increases in our benefits, and then it freezes 4 vacant positions and accounts for 3 months vacancy in the executive director position. And then we are gonna still move forward on hiring a vacant analyst position in DSIM. We found out the week of the board meeting last week that things are moving ahead in a positive way with Rural Red, and that analyst position was under the Rural Red umbrella. We were looking at funding it to help seek out additional external funding for customer programs, but now we're really kind of ramping up, getting ready for Rural Red as well. Next slide, please. We did reduce the The first round of department requests was reduced by 2.3 million. Which includes postponing architectural design of the new office building, decreasing the customer incentive and rebate budget, reducing the communication and outreach budget, and then postponing the third-party compensation and classification review. Next slide. So as you can see, based on our current budget, and I'll say that this is just the current budget as adopted with the mid-year budget adjustment in February of this year. You can see quite a decrease in revenue under electricity sales. And then we do have 1.78 million that we're expecting in grants and contracts. And this is for our EV, our electric vehicle charging stations and our rural fire department resilience grant, so solar plus storage at rural fire departments. Next slide, please. 97%. So our revenue, 97% comes from electricity sales, and the rest is from grants and contracts. Next slide. So our expenses here, wholesale power, 61 million, and you can see our professional and program services budget went up, but a lot of this is grant funded, pass-through funds for consultants and contracts. Next slide, please. So our wholesale power supply accounts for 85% of our entire expense budget. Personnel is about 7% in comparison. And you know, our program expenses is less than 1%. Next slide. So our lean mean power resources department gets the big chunk of the pie. Again, that's mostly for procurement of power. And I like this slide. I was really happy Lori put it together because you do see that we're fairly evenly spread out with our other departments as far as expenses. Next slide, please. So in summary, the budget presented to you in your packet leaves a net revenue of negative 1.8 million. As compared to what we are expecting in our current budget of 10 million. The current budget line is not actuals, it's still projections. When we presented the scenarios to you in May, we had a third scenario of selling off any excess renewables that we had procured that we would no longer need based on updated goals. And that is not included in this amount. So this negative 1.8 million is just not procuring more to get to that 100% and to procure based on the state standard. There is a chance that we're able to push this number into the green by allowing the Energy Authority to trade and sell on our behalf for any excess renewables that we have, because we've been preparing for these goals and procuring based on board adopted goals. So there might be some length in renewables that could be sold, but we wanted to present the most conservative numbers to the board. Next slide, please. So Rural Ren, we'll quick update. First round of comments were submitted on a proposal that the administrative law judge of the CPUC issued, which allowed Rural Ren to be divided in a north and a central geographic regions with this budget that we have here. So the first round of comments were already submitted by all the parties, and reply comments are due tomorrow. And then it is in the commission's hands to issue a proposed decision. So we're getting much closer to a final decision. I will say there weren't any comments that gave me a lot of fear that we won't be able to move forward in some capacity of a rural red north and a rural red central. But again, we're not going to put any of these funds into our budget until we have a final decision from the CPC. So we plan on bringing back a budget adjustment to the board once we have that decision. And these will offset some of our existing personnel costs and allow for an implementation budget for customer programs as well. Next slide, please. And that's my last slide. So the recommendation, staff recommendation is to adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025.
Question, what falls into the non-operating expenses? That 129,000, I think it was.
That is the interest on our USDA loan.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
Okay, so can you go back to the slide where it had the things that we took out of the budget? Oh, sorry, I'm looking at you. I should.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, no.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Cause I wanna throw it out to the board, how you guys feel about the last bullet, about postponing the third-party compensation classification review. 50 to 75K isn't a lot in the big scheme of things and the big blue part of the pie. So I just wanna throw it out to you guys to see if that's something we really wanna put off.
It's my thought that we should be conservative until we know what's happening with Will Van North. And then we can look at maybe putting some of these things, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the budget and just the landscape is so volatile right now that doesn't seem like a priority necessarily in my view. But you know, to your point, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it isn't significant.
Staff is important to us, yeah.
I had that same thought, Sherry, when I was going from the May budget to this one, and you know, realistically, based on the schedule that Trippepi Smith is given for the executive director hire, you know, we're looking at October. I thought that this could be something we could address at mid-year budget review, because realistically, I think this is something we would want to have the new executive director's input on. And, you know, they're going to need some time to ramp up. So in my mind, I'd like to reconsider this when we bring the update back in mid-year.
That's a good little point. Yeah, that's great. Any other questions? Let's open it up to the public. Anybody here in person wishing to comment on the budget? Not seeing anybody. Is there anybody online? All right, then I will bring it back to the board for any final thoughts, questions, discussion, or a motion.
Question, and a change from that same slide, the change in revenue rebates and that sort of thing. Is the 400,000 a really common number that we've kind of kept throughout the years, or is that a fairly
Very
fluctuating?
So historically, about 70% of that was funded through outside funding sources. We would receive funds from PG&E through so they collect a public purpose charge, and then we would apply to administer in our area those programs. That program expired, and we were gonna have this really small gap in the lead up to rural red, and we funded it through CCE ratepayer funds for that gap. Well, that gap became a little bit longer, so the amount I don't think is I do think it's increased over the years. The big part of it is that previously it wasn't funded through RCC because it was funded through outside funds. And we're hoping to bring that back through rural rent.
Yeah, so that number will go back up from low end.
Thank you. Anything else from the board or motion?
I'll move to adopt the 24-25 proposed budget.
I'll second. All right, having a motion and a second, all those in favor, aye. Aye.
Yeah.
Any nays and any abstentions? Not an abstention?
No, I vote yes.
Oh, okay, all right, so that's unanimous then. All right. Thank you, Eileen, thank you, Lori, for all of your hard work on this budget. I know it's probably wasn't the most fun with how it's looking, but you guys did a wonderful job and kept everything very good. So we appreciate that. All right, that'll take us then into 9.1 new business, which is rural electric vehicle charging, CEC, grant construction and contracts. We have staff report, please.
Yes.
Excuse me, directors and.
Yeah, I like to recuse myself. Should I do it after the staff report or during?
Yeah, I mean, well. I will, should they?
Yeah, I just work with one of the contractors here who've been released extensively in my industry.
All right,
So.
we have one recusal and then we have.
I'll just state, I am not related to the mobility guy.
Yeah. Okay, so not recusing. Thank you. All right, take it away, Mike.
Thank you, everyone, for the chance to present. I don't have any slides for this today. My name is Mike Avcali. I'm the senior manager in our infrastructure planning department. And so I'll just give a little background to the topic. In December of 2021, the California Energy Commission released a grant solicitation for rural electric vehicle charging under their Clean Transportation Program. This was grant funding opportunity 21603. And the idea behind that was that this is a chance to demonstrate replicable and scalable business and technology models for deployment of public electric vehicle charging infrastructure, capable of maximizing access and EV travel for rural residents. So our department applied for that grant funding. We submitted our application in March of 2022. And it took about a year for them to award that grant, but we entered into an agreement with the California Energy Commission in March of 2023. The total grant award for the sorry about that noise. $700,000 from the California Energy Commission, and it required a 20% from Redwood Coast Energy Authority, so that was $175,000 from us. So in the last year and 4 months, we hired Woodchurch Engineering, which you all approved our contract to enter into contract with Woodchurch Engineering. They did the design and engineering for 9 of our 10 project sites. We originally had 10 project sites, but College of the Redwoods has since fallen out on our queue of possible project sites. We completed the engineering and design in late December of 2023 with some revisions in January, and then we went out to bid in February. Our first time when we bid this project, we didn't bring those bid results to the board. We solicited for all 9 sites at once in one large solicitation, and it was not very successful. It was not successful in a couple of ways. Ultimately, we only had one bidder, and that bidder did not provide a responsive and responsible bid. They were just lacking some technical documents. They lacked their bid bond. But anytime you run a public works solicitation and you only get one bidder, that's another sign of not being very successful. So those were 2 strikes against us there. We could not award the contract, and we were not very happy that we only got one bidder. But it was interesting to us because we did have 7 potential bidding entities show up to our pre-construction conference. We knew there was interest in the project, but we didn't achieve that. We didn't get that interest to show up in our bid. So we came up with a lot of different ways to address that. The biggest one was to break up our projects geographically. Our project sites range from Orleans in the north to Garberville and Redway in the south, and it didn't take a lot of logic for us to see that this might not be appealing to a contractor to take on the whole project. The whole project has a lot of complexity. There's a lot of different needs at different sites. And so what we did is broke it up. And we solicited recently in May for the Orleans project as a standalone. And then we solicited Garberville and Redwood sites together. They were close together. We thought that was a good fit. And then we solicited for 3 other sites, Sequoia Park in Eureka, Roner Park in Fortuna, and Redwood Memorial Hospital in Fortuna. And just to give the full information, in Orleans, our project site host is the Volunteer Fire Department. In Redway, we're partnering with Redwood Rural Health at their dental clinic. And in Garberville, we're partnering with Soham Community Health at their new optometry clinic. Those are the sites that we received bids for in the last month. And now I'll just refer back to my report, and this is in your staff report, but we received 2 bids for the Orleans project, and the low bid on that was Mobley Construction Incorporated, $97,153. We received 5 responsive and responsible bids for our 2 Southern Humboldt sites, and the low bidder there was Hooven and Reese Incorporated for $96,110. And then we received 2 responsive and responsible bids for our Eureka and Fortuna projects. And again, the low bid there was Hooven and Reese. And the total bid amount was $165,568.86. And so we felt like those were much better results. We had a much broader range of contractors participating in the bid process. And so now we come back to you with those contracts for award. Staff recommends that we award those contracts to Mobley Construction for the project in Orleans at the Volunteer Fire Department, and to Hooven and Reese for the projects in Redway and Garberville, and again, Hooven and Reese for the projects in Fortuna and Eureka. The total value of those construction contracts would be $359,000 or $359,831.36. It is within our grant budget for the construction of the project, but if you read your staff report closely, and I won't shy away from this, it's really pushing our budget right now. We've solicited for about half of the work, 6 out of our potential 10 sites. And staff knew this when we got our first bid, that the price was high at that first bid, that first failed bid. Breaking it up has brought the cost down. So pretty significantly about, it's hard to say exactly because the failed bid is not a real number, but prices came down about $50,000. We've been applying for outside funds. We recently got word today, about an hour before this meeting, which is great. The McLean Foundation is going to give us some additional funding for our site in Garberville. And so there was a small gap there. Garberville happened to be one of our more competitively priced sites. The McLean Foundation is helping us cover that gap. We've applied for outside funds to McLean for the Redway site as well, and we're seeking additional funding from other philanthropic organizations to try to close this budget gap. We also see some potential for savings within our CEC budget that we could reallocate funds over to construction. So our PG&E costs have come a little bit below, about half of what was in our budget. Our staff costs are trending lower than what's in our budget, and we will move to reallocate those funds to construction to try to get to construct the last of the projects. And with that, I will pause for any questions.
All right, yeah, go ahead. I have a comment. We bid on the Fortuna Eureka. You did an excellent job breaking them up because I can see where it would be very overwhelming to try to do all the sites. Construction costs are just going to go up. So I do think it's a good idea to move forward. But what happens if I'm assuming that the money we got is for the 9-10 sites. What happens if we aren't able to fulfill all of those?
Those are really big questions. I mean, I think that another thing I failed to mention, we reached out to the California Energy Commission for additional funding. We asked for an amendment to the contract because we knew that there had been record inflationary activity between when we bid the job and when we can build it. They denied that. So I think that we hope to succeed. We want to get under budget. We want all the strategies that everything's been trending in the right direction.
Is there a deadline?
I mean, our deadline to construct is May of 2025, and then a year of reporting to May of 2026. And the one thing we got from the Energy Commission is that they will give us they'll extend us, they'll give us more time. They don't want us to build any less, and they don't want to give us any more money. The things that would have really helped. But we have more time. So, I don't know if that fully answered your question, because I don't know that I really know exactly what will happen. If we were to not succeed.
Did we already get the funding?
Yeah, we've got.
Will we have to get paid back
Excuse
or
me,
will
I
we be
think
fine?
you do have a conflict of interest. You said it was your business.
No, Beacon is not.
No,
They're not an award.
We're not
it
awarded.
doesn't matter. You participated in this, so you are affected by the decision. Beacon Construction is your business?
No. It's I work there.
Okay, you said we.
Oh, well, because
Got it.
we have.
Understood. Thank you. Very
I
nice.
say we when I talk about this group too.
Yeah, understood.
So we are, given the money on a reimbursement basis. And so we are trying very hard to comply and get the 10 sites. And I will say, the staff has gotten really creative on how to make, I think, for example, I think what was around 45,000 is what we thought each site can cost for construction, and you can see, some, if you break them up, come closer, but Orleans, because of the location, is way off. And so these are more of the remote sites, and the remainder of the sites are closer, and we're hoping aren't gonna take as much asphalt work and things like that, so that'll bring the remainder sites down. And then just really actively looking for outside funding. And then the last resort is not making the grant, 10 sites. And we'll come back to the board before, we do that and say, are there funds that RCA can put in to meet this requirement? If not, we're just gonna have to ask the CEC to forgive us, because we've never not complied before, but they delayed our start, and construction costs just keep going up. So the more we delay, the more it's costing.
And Eileen really did include an important part of the narrative I forgot, which is we took this odd route of going to the highest hanging fruit first, not the lowest hanging fruit. We took our most underserved locations, our most remote locations, and the locations that were going to be the most difficult and costly to build. It's kind of a worst case scenario. Let's see if this works. It is working, and she's absolutely right. Our remaining sites are going to be much easier to build, and we expect the cost to not be as high as these sites.
And I just want to say, it was a very conscious decision to move forward with the Orleans, Redwood, and Garberville, knowing that they are going to cost more than the other sites first. I just couldn't feel good about calling this a rural electric vehicle charging grant and then only putting charging stations in McKinleyville and Eureka. And so it's a calculated risk. That we want to honor what we said, that we were going to be serving these rural communities with this grant.
And what are the remaining sites that have not been?
Azalea Hall in McKinleyville, Carlson Park in Arcata, which is under development, and Mad River Community Hospital in Arcata. And to replace the College of the Redwood site right now, what we're hoping is that old Harley Davidson building on 101 heading north out of Eureka is being repurposed to a DMV. So that will be the new DMV location, and we've made a connection with the site developer. So we're hoping that will work. We have a couple other backup sites. Another one would be the Jefferson Community Center in Eureka.
Any other questions from the board before we open it up to public comment? Go ahead, Skip.
Yeah, how will the work be inspected?
In City of Fortuna, it'll be City of Fortuna inspector. Most of our other sites are county sites, so the county building department does the inspections.
Who will provide oversight of the work requests.
Our staff does construction oversight. Yeah.
All right, not seeing any other questions, I'll open this up to public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to comment on these contracts? Come on up.
Strong support for this, and just on an anecdotal note, a good friend of mine has family in Orleans, and I think he'll be overjoyed to hear that's to be going there, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody online? All right, I will bring it back to the board. Any final thoughts, questions, or a motion?
One more question, were there any plans to try to go any further north in McKinleyville?
Farther north than McKinleyville, not along the 101 corridor, not as a part of this grid.
Are there any charging stations in the state board?
Not that I know of. Our farthest north is in Trinidad for our network. We currently have a network of 29 stations that offer 56 ports, and the farthest north we go is Trinidad.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to award contracts for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations for the RCA North Coast Electric Vehicle Charging Network Expansion Projects to Mobley Construction, Hooven and Reese Incorporated, and authorize the executive director to execute all applicable documents subject to RCEA General Counsel review.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? All right, unanimous of the voting non-recused members. All right, let's bring Jack in and then we'll have our staff reports.
Okay, really quick, I wanted to give an update on the Department of Energy, grant that RCA submitted on behalf of Hula Rancheria Tribe, Yurok Tribe, Hoopa Valley, and we did get an invitation to have a interview with Department of Energy staff on the grant. That's gonna happen tomorrow morning. Which is the next, positive step forward. If you're not invited for an interview, that means you're out. So we're really excited that we've made it this far. So we'll keep you updated as we progress. And then lastly, I just, as you may recall, we have an MOU with Humboldt Sawmill Company for them to provide us data every year on their operations and emissions. And the data is, we're supposed to receive it in May, and then we vet it through the Biomass Technical Advisory Group and our Community Advisory Committee, and then we bring it to the board. We have received the materials. However, we, received last year, was our first year of looping in the Biomass Technical Advisory Group into reviewing the report from HSV. And so, I don't think we gave them enough time to fully engage them in that process. So we're kind of slowing down the process a little bit to make sure that we are fully engaging and getting the most out of this group to review the report. And so we have received it, and we'll probably be bringing the report back to the board in September after it's gone through Biomass Technical Advisory from SCAC. But just if anyone was just dying to know where that report was, it's coming.
Anybody have any questions for Eileen? All right, do we take public comment on our reports here? Okay, we did. So is there any public comment on this report? Not seeing any in person. Do we have any online? All right. Thank you. So that takes us to item 11, future agenda items. Do any directors have any future agenda items they'd like to see us discuss? All right, Not seeing any, that's gonna take us, we're gonna go into closed session, so item 12.1, public employment pursuant to government code section 54957, executive director recruitment. Do we have any public comment before we go into closed session? Not seeing any in person, do we have any online? All right, well, thank you, folks, we'll get going in a second. Okay, we are back after closed session and there is nothing to report out, and with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.